Good day and welcome to Our Power is Within. I'm your host, Chaz Smith, aka Just Chaz, and I am on a mission to inspire people to take their power back and realize that each and every one of us has a healer within our own self. When we can create an environment that supports healing and get out of our own way, we are truly capable of healing in mind, body, and soul. For those of you who are new to the show, welcome and thanks for being here. And for those who've been following along, I thank you so much for your continued support. If you would like to help me spread this message, some simple ways to do this are by leaving a review on Apple Podcast or sharing an episode with a friend, or even perhaps your favorite episode on social media and tagging me at Our Power is Within on Instagram. My challenge for the week is going to be a little different than what you might be used to. So if you did listen to last week's episode with Michelle, we talked briefly about morning pages. And I'm sure there are some of you out there who say that you don't do well with meditation. Now, I personally believe that no one can be bad at meditating. Most of the time, when I hear people say that they're bad at it, it is often their reason is because they say their mind wanders. And yet the whole idea is to just be aware and then bring yourself back to presence. However, with that said, I do very much realize that meditation is not for everyone for various reasons. And I also know that there are so many different ways to meditate, aka be aware, be present, be familiar with. So, okay, you're like, what does this all have to do with the challenge? So the challenge this week is for you to do 1 page of writing first thing in the morning. And I mean first thing. The minute you open your eyes. Yes. Okay, if you have to go to the bathroom, do that first. I don't want anyone having accidents because of the challenge. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, sit down, do it in your bed, laying down, whatever feels right for you. But the challenge is to do 1 page of writing first thing in the morning, a 1-page minimum. And you might be saying, well, what about? What do you want me to write about? And the answer to that is anything at all on your mind. I'm coming to understand that this can be, in a sense, a form of meditation of its own. And I've been doing this morning pages, and I've also come to understand that the idea of it is to just clear your mind of all the noise, all that surface layer noise and thoughts rumbling around, so that you can get to the deeper layers of your authentic self. So honestly, just write whatever comes to mind. Plus, my thought in doing this is that it's really good with neuroplasticity. It's really good to change up our routines. And so making a minor adjustment to your morning routine could be a really fun change. And if it feels good and you have a lot to write about and you're mid-thought after 1 page, you can absolutely keep writing. There's no rules that say it has to be only 1 page. I like setting small, manageable goals. And if you can make that commitment to yourself for at least 1 page and then you want to write more, that's just all bonus. So yeah, try it out. Set a goal for a minimum of 7 days from whatever day you listen to this. And you guys, I would especially love to hear how this one goes for you. I would just, if anyone, P.S., these are supposed to be for your eyes only. They're not, supposed to be for other people to read. But if anyone just has anything they want to share, like, this really worked for me, this was such a really refreshing change of pace, this was a really awesome addition to my morning routine, or this didn't work for me, or whatever it is, I would just really love to hear how it goes for you. So shoot me a DM, shoot me an email, and fill me in. So now that we got the challenge out of the way, I want to introduce you to our guest today. Oh my gosh, you guys, seriously, I just adore this girl. Alina Bachmann is our guest today. Alina is a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and she has gone through so much along her journey, and she has learned so much along the way, and she is here today to share some of what she's learned with us. As you will quickly learn, after years of Alina trying so many different modalities for healing, she discovered brain retraining, and this was the modality and tool that had the most profound positive impact and lasting success for Alina. As a born and natural creative, Alina talks about how she found her way back into her creative expression through brain rewiring, and even how she expanded her creative endeavors. Alina not only uses brain rewiring to heal from a myriad of physical symptoms, but also mental symptoms and so much more. And I feel so confident that you will all love today's chat with Alina. So let's go ahead and get it started. Hello, Alina. Welcome to the show today. And thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, absolutely. The more that I keep learning about you and the more blogs that I read that you have written, the more excited I've been to finally get to connect with you and just have this conversation that I have no doubt will be really beautiful and insightful.
Thank you so much.
So for everyone listening, what I was thinking about doing is having you start with just a really brief introduction of just kind of who you are. And we don't need to get into like all your symptoms or all, the whole long story, but just like a nice little brief introduction to who you are. And and then from there, we'll start getting into some really good, juicy questions I've been waiting to ask you.
Okay, so my name is Alina, and I'm the creator of Brain Gardening. But before that, I still am a brain retrainer, and I use DNRS as my main tool for recovery. And limbic system impairment has been pretty much a condition that was part of my life ever since I was a child, without really having the awareness of that until recently. And my main vehicle for kind of dealing and processing the emotions that were tied to those experiences was art. So my identity was pretty much constructed around this concept of being an artist and just living and breathing art. And without the tools that I've gained through brain retraining, that identity kind of got veiled through all of the conditions and symptoms that I developed from not really targeting the root behind all of those issues.
That makes so much sense. So did you find yourself not as engaged in art for a while when you first went into the brain retraining program?
Well, I had completely lost touch with that side of myself. Like I became so focused on like the symptoms and defining myself by how I was feeling physically or what I was able to do physically that I lost touch with that passionate side, or that side that like filled me with like vitality. And I had a creative block that was also sort of frustrating to deal with as well. But the brain retraining, I had no idea that it would have the effect that it ended up having. And I didn't really see the two things as connected. I thought that maybe I would deal with the symptoms first and then see what happens after that, as in terms of my identity as an artist or as a creative. But I found that as I was going through this practice of healing myself, that this door was like opening in my mind, and creativity started to flow again.
That's so beautiful. It's very much my experience with brain retraining. What you said it so well is you kind of go in for one thing and you think it's going to be working towards one thing. And then as you get more immersed in it, you realize that it's actually allowing you to tap into so many other components of yourself and remember who you are and have these beautiful gifts and skills come back to life within us.
Exactly. It's like peeling away layers of yourself and then revealing like the essence of who you are underneath all of those symptoms or conditions or whatever it is that you're using brain retraining for. It like unearths you, and it's a really amazing process.
Yes, I agree. Okay. So I know you kind of briefed me on this too, and you said just now that you used DNRS as your primary tool for brain retraining, but you also mentioned that you had adapted this program differently than what it was marketed as. And I have a two-part question. One is how, in what ways did you adapt it differently? And then how did you know what was right for you and what you needed as far as the adaptations?
Okay, so going into the program, I started with the DVDs around, I think, November of 2018. And I watched the DVDs and I followed the practice that's suggested, but I didn't really tap into the power of the other pillars, and I didn't really grasp that knowledge until a few months later when I was well enough to make it to an in-person seminar, which I went to the Greensboro seminar in April of 2019. And it was at that point where I really saw and experienced profound shifts in utilizing like the other pillars, specifically in paying more attention to thoughts and behaviors during the day that were also contributing. So my practice became less about concentrating on this 1 hour of meditation and really tapping into the other pillars of the program. And that's where it really resonated on a deeper, more emotional level for me. And I did pursue that 1 hour of practice pretty regularly every day for about I would say maybe the next 6 months. And then I really sunk into incremental training and just breaking these patterns in associations that I had with things that were creating this overactive response in my body for protection that wasn't really warranted. So I adjusted the practice to really kind of navigate it in this way that was led by what was driving those responses, and adjusting the practice to kind of flow more fluidly than having like this structure and this pressure of necessarily doing the rounds part of it.
Okay. So you said that shift was about 6 months after the seminar. So around a year of training?
Probably a little less than a year. Yeah.
I think that makes sense. I know. So, okay, well, let me ask you this, because you said you kind of shifted and sunk more into incremental training. So does that mean that you found other ways in addition to incremental exposure plus a round? Did you find other ways to kind of do and embrace your like incremental training that worked for you and what you were going through?
Well, I used the rounds as a tool to ground myself back into my parasympathetic nervous system. So if I found myself in a state where I was in a limbic loop, I would go to the rounds. But if I found myself in a state where I wasn't necessarily completing that loop, but having a thought that was perhaps not helpful, or having the impulse to do some sort of behavior that was also not helpful, I would I would invite this pause just between this space would open up where it wouldn't automatically go into this whatever the action or thought was, and it would invite like a change to take place. So I consider that to be like doing the opposite of what would complete the loop, and just creating more neuroplasticity for myself through just reframing and being more cognitive of these behaviors and thoughts.
Okay, that makes so much sense. Did you at any point incorporate other types of neuroplasticity tools or just anything else that was productive for calming the nervous system? And because there's so many tools out there. So did you pretty much stick with the rounds as your focus, or did you incorporate anything in addition to?
Well, I tried a lot of stuff prior to finding DNRS, and I found it to work occasionally, but it didn't really create the effect that the rounds would do. Mm-hmm. So I guess I would say I really relied on the rounds as a like a restorative activity, but that kind of changed last year, where I started to turn to yoga as it was almost as if I was supplementing yoga instead of the rounds as I got further in practice, and I found that I was able to experience like that same relaxation and that same restorative feeling that I would get from the rounds. And I had tried yoga prior to brain retraining, and I didn't have that connection. But I think that I got like a bridge that developed as a result of doing the marketed brain retraining practice, to where these tools and techniques started to work differently because there were new pathways in place.
Absolutely. And if I remember correctly, I saw somewhere that you recommended yin yoga to really help bring you back into a parasympathetic state. And is that the type of yoga you still practice?
Yes. So I do a number of combinations, but they all fall under yin yoga, and they have different levels based on like different physical abilities. So you can do a practice that's primarily done with the assist or support of a chair. And then there's other forms and formats that are reclined positions, so you're mainly laying down. So it's a very I think like it's a versatile form of yoga. So you're able to modify the positions and the poses to be within your body's range of motion.
Absolutely. I love yin yoga. It's just so nice that you get to like kind of welcome stillness. Mm-hmm. And I love that it's more of a passive practice and not active stretching.
Yes.
So, but yes, I had to learn the hard way, and kind of like you, I remember prior to brain rewiring, and I was involved in like the health and fitness industry, I kind of still had that mindset in the past of like pushing mm-hmm. yourself. And I see now how I kind of pushed outside my body's boundaries. And now I really love learning how to just like, there's nowhere I'm trying to go, nothing I'm trying to accomplish other than just being there in whatever range feels right without that push.
Yeah, I think they call it like this edge.
Yes, the edge. Yes, that is beautiful. And I think it's really cool because how you said you've kind of been able in your rewiring to kind of transition to where you found these other tools like yin yoga to get that same restorative feeling that you once relied upon the rounds for. And I wonder, it seems to me what happens for so many of us is as you're doing this and you commit for a good amount of time, we, like you said, we're peeling back all the layers of the conditioning, getting closer to remembering who we are. Mm-hmm. And I feel like so many people end up kind of coming more into their their soul, their purpose, their inner knowing, their intuition. And it's so nice when we can get to that point where we can actually see the similarities and feel and notice the connections to how certain things make us feel.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been such a amazing journey of like self-discovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So do you do yin yoga on your own following videos, or do you obviously maybe pre-2020, did you go to a studio, or do you do like Zoom classes with people?
So prior to 2020, I really wanted, it was a goal of mine and in several future visualizations to go to a yoga studio, and I was working up to it. And then global events happened, and that kind of put things on the back burner, but not really, because then it seemed like the yoga studios kind of met me where I was, literally, by offering Zoom classes. So right at the start, in, I would say, probably March of last year, I started to sign up for Zoom yoga classes because I had tried to do like my own practice of like watching YouTube videos and pursuing it that way. But I found that it didn't become habit, and having like a scheduled time and accountability with other retrainers who were also working on joyful movement goals, that led me to be more successful in developing those habits. So I started like an incremental approach where I committed to one Zoom class per week, and I loved it so much that I ended up getting like an unlimited pass with a studio that was doing all of their programs virtually. And I started doing classes. I think I was doing 2 classes a day, 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like so nourishing for my body physically. It was also healing its that were still kind of present, but lesser so with the brain retraining. But it was like that added support that helped them to heal, I think. And it was just so nice to connect to a community that was so like the community that we have with brain retrainers. But they were the yoga community, so they didn't know of brain retraining, but it was like this similarity that felt familiar and comfortable.
Yes, I was actually going to ask you if the instructor was familiar with brain retraining.
Yeah.
So that's so awesome. I love that. I feel it's got to be such a powerful thing too, because I know for some people, I mean, we all start brain retraining. We're all at a different point in our lives and different levels, and we all come in with different its and different issues that we're trying to resolve. But I know that for some people, it can feel very like our body we almost sometimes are limited on what we're able to do as far as movement is concerned. So then as you're rewiring to be able to give yourself that gift to incorporate this type of really gentle movement and stretching it's such a really wonderful gift to give the body after it has gone through so much of a healing crisis.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it was one of those areas that I could incrementally train on more emotional and like mental associations, because I was like building confidence in my body, and it was nice to experience shifts in and adaptations in how I was able to do more poses or to be more flexible. Like I saw my body shifting, and that brought a lot of healing just and respect for this body that I'm in.
Absolutely. And I have to say that I agree with you so much. I do believe that I don't know that I'll ever believe that Zoom classes are a substitute for like real human connection. Mm-hmm. And with that said, I found it to be an amazingly powerful tool for me where I was at in my retraining too, because, you know, there were some things I got to participate in via Zoom that I probably wouldn't have felt it was in my training zone, or that I was ready to go to a physical class. And it was really comforting to know that I could still participate and still feel this connection to community, but like in the comfort of my own space.
Yeah, I've been very grateful of opportunities that are coming out of this time. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Because I got to try several new things that were all so powerful and awesome. And I thought, gosh, it would be really cool if when things transition and we start having in-person stuff again, if they could keep the camera rolling for those that want to stay home, you know, for people who are at different places in their journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So speaking of yin yoga and you incorporating this into your retraining, I know that we've already talked about, you're definitely a creative by nature. And I know you've blogged about some other really awesome tools that you've used in your retraining journey, such as music and dance. Mm-hmm. And it's just, your blogs have blown my mind and helped me so much, because I read them and then I take your insight and I look up your recommendations and I try things out, and I'm sold on so much of the stuff you've shared. And so I'd love for you to just share some insight about that, how the music, because I know aren't you in a music program right now too?
I am, yes.
Yeah. So if you wanted to share anything about music and dance for anyone else out there who's listening and they're in their journey, how they could benefit from incorporating it.
Okay, so I turn to both music and dance as a means of tapping into that creative self for me, but in a way that wasn't approaching it as directly with the area that I was most comfortable with, which was visual arts. So I kind of danced around different options, literally, of ways I could tap into creative energy and just kind of nourish myself creatively. So one of the ways was music, and music has been something deeply part of my life for a very long time. I actually was musically gifted as a child and played instruments. And when I started high school, I only had a limited amount of electives. So I focused exclusively on visual art for what I had, what I was able to take. And I kind of lost the musical side of me. But still was turning to listening to music as a means of relaxation or just shifting mood. And that was something I also tapped into through just brain retraining in general, and using like guided meditations and different tools that are already out there by others to support my nervous system and to kind of promote that relaxation response in the body. And I noticed something in particular with when I listened to music, if it had like an unpredictable or irregular beat, something that my brain couldn't like try to fill out what the rest was, like before I heard it, I found to just be in this state of deep peace where like my limbic system was quiet and just engaged and curious and like, what's going to come next, because I can't figure it out. And I was really kind of fascinated by that quality. So I think it was probably around this past fall or so, I found I was listening to sound meditations through the New York Open Center, and I was attending like these free afternoon sound meditations and just having all sorts of amazing experiences, like visualizations and stuff, just in listening to these sounds. And I really wanted to know what was happening underneath it all, because it was just it was creating such a response that was so direct, without like this conscious brain trying to like control or redirect thoughts, which I think is largely what we do in brain retraining. But this was something more through experience of just hearing these sounds and then being in a completely neuroplastic state. So I signed up for this program that they're doing. It's an integrative Sound and Music Institute certificate program. And it is a 9-month series, and I'm like halfway through the program now, and I'm learning all these different things about how music affects the brain and promotes neuroplasticity and helps create new neural connections in the brain simply by listening to particular sounds or sequences or like cadences. And my hope in doing this program is that I can develop some tools through brain gardening, like sound meditations and stuff that could be used as further tools for retrainers.
When you incorporate this for brain retrainers in your brain gardening, are you thinking it would be to utilize with rounds, like to have music in the background with your rounds? Or do you feel it would be something that they could do stand alone to support their brain rewiring in addition to?
I think it would be like another option and not something that would be used in conjunction with rounds, although you probably could if to like create added emotions or feelings, and maybe like create a connection if there wasn't like rich feelings with a particular memory. But my thought is like as a standalone, like a sound meditation that can be used to kind of engage the parasympathetic nervous system and bring the rest and digest processes more online.
That makes sense. That's awesome. So you mentioned that you were finding a deep peace with unpredictable beats. Do you have any like recommendation or just an example? Because I'm trying to wrap my head around it, or I'm trying to like imagine a type of music where I've noticed or felt that way. And off the top of my head, I can't really.
Okay.
I guess a lot of music does have predictable beats.
So it's like the kind of music that would be used in like a sound healing, if you have any experience with like that, or like a sound bath where they're using like singing bowls, or sometimes they use tuning forks or like a gong, or more like elemental instruments. So it's not something so recognizable as like a trumpet or a trombone or something like that. And it's not any particular song that's following a melody or has lyrics. It's more like vocalizations if you're using voice, and it's more like, I forgot the word is. It's like, it's a cadence that you can't really rationalize. So it's if you're doing like a musical scale, that's not what it would be. It would be something that's like, it sounds a little off, because then your brain is not able to connect to any particular pattern. And it remains in this like neuroplastic state where it's kind of creative and curious.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much. Yes, sound baths are amazing. I love them. I love the sound of singing bowls, though. I just think it's such a beautiful sound.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
That's awesome. Have you learned to play the bowls?
So I just got my first singing bowl for Christmas. So I'm learning, and it's really amazing, just because like the sound doesn't really capture. I've been doing like Zoom calls with the sound meditations, and they're using like the singing bowls, but it doesn't capture as clearly as it does in person, like the room.
Yes, totally. Yeah, that's one thing that I don't know that you can replace is hearing, and not just hearing, but feeling the vibrations of the music in person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, That is awesome. Well, congratulations on your first singing bowl.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And then you also talked about incorporating dance into your retraining.
Yes. So when I was little, I was really fascinated by dancers and just like this ability to be so expressive through your body. And I always wanted to embody that feeling, but I felt like I defined myself as a visual artist, so I couldn't really explore that. And actually, one of my like best friends now through brain retraining, she's my buddy round person. She's also a dancer, and she was doing a lot of rounds, just evoking this quality with dance and this connection with dance that I felt really inspired by. And she gave me some recommendations for different Zoom options of dance and like different modalities that are out there in like the healing arts spaces. So it's not approaching it from like a technical side, but recognizing the healing potential in these movements and just connecting to your intuition to guide. So that's kind of where it blossomed, where I had this supportive source that was kind of bringing new things into my world and into my mind. And then I started to pursue those things and doing a lot of like the one modality is called journey dance. And that's probably my favorite at this point in the journey. But it's just been so it's been like a vehicle to really tap into these feelings and emotions and also awaken memories of just dancing as a child and being completely carefree and just celebrating myself, my body, my life. And it's nice to experience that same energy as an adult.
Absolutely. And I wanted to thank you for that recommendation because I did my very first journey dance last Tuesday.
How'd it go?
It was so amazing. I just danced all over my room and I laughed and I giggled. And at the very end, when she had us lie down, I think I ended up just like crying tears of joy.
Yeah.
Just feeling so free and connected and having this beautiful like dance and relationship with my own body. And it just, it made me just have shed a few tears of joy. I just felt really, really grateful.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Because I definitely had a lot of limiting beliefs my whole life about me and my ability or, my not ability to dance. Very limiting beliefs. And I rejected all possibility of it with these stories that now, as we both know through brain rewiring has opened up possibilities and taught me that I don't have to be any certain way. I can become whoever I want to be. If I want to be a morning person, if I want to be a dancer, if I want to do certain things, I can train it and learn it. And so, something I do in some of my rounds is I imagine myself at like, say, a festival, but I imagine and I actually move my body and dance. And I imagine being there in a carefree, like I can just flow and dance like I would at Journey Dance, but with thousands of people and it doesn't matter anymore, right? Like I'm just this confident, carefree spirit dancing around to the music. And I do think that's a really powerful tool, and getting to have that practice to recreate like who we are and overcome old beliefs and patterns.
Yeah, I feel like all of the arts, so visual, musical, dance, I feel like they're all vehicles to tap into like the more emotional side of things. So like things that might not be easily accessed through incremental training or just in processing of thoughts, it like creates an experience, and that experience can harvest like so many emotions and link to so many memories that maybe are a little hidden or veiled by current circumstances.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because like I look back at my beliefs, my limiting beliefs, and then just kind of society and just seeing like what a lot of people's beliefs are within themselves. And we limit ourselves sometimes so much because often if we're not good enough to be competitive or to make a living out of it, we sell ourselves short as though I'm not creative because I'm not Picasso, or I'm not an artist, but we're all artists, we're all creators. And I think intuitively and innately, we all have a passion and a desire to create in some capacity, and finding and connecting with what that looks and feels like for each of us.
I completely agree. And that creativity can manifest in so many different ways. It doesn't have to be like the traditional sense of what the arts are.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, there's people like chefs who are master creators in a kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so speaking of limiting beliefs, I know that in our conversation offline, you had mentioned that you consider yourself healed from all of your physical ills. And now you're really using brain retraining to take it to another level and actually to work on rewiring your core beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering if you could give an example of how you use brain retraining for this purpose.
So I have noticed that the core beliefs are linked to like particular patterns of behavior, and they're like at the root of whatever the behavior is. So if it's a behavior that like where you're connecting your worth to like your productivity, it's realizing that I am enough regardless of what my productivity level is. So I'm really honing in on those deeper false narratives that I have been attached to for so long. And I think a lot of people kind of develop certain tools in their childhoods through their parents or whatever teachers. And that provides like a level of emotional intelligence. But I feel like if you don't have that as a child, you're still able to create that for yourself through like reparenting yourself, or to really look at what's driving fear or other negative feelings, and what is the belief that's also adding power to that thought or behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicole, the holistic psychologist, talks about reparenting ourselves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be like, so once you kind of get into the bottom and you discover, oh, okay, this is the underlying belief that has driven my behavior. Once you kind of become aware of what that is, what would be your next step for rewiring it?
You have to, well, I when I discover a limiting belief, what I do is I speak louder of what I want to be true, or what I believe in my heart to be true. That's like the opposite of whatever the limbic system is sending emotionally. And that takes repetition. It's not so simple as you say it once and that other voice never comes back up again. But it's repetitively disproving that voice, and to build yourself up or just have a clear and tangible representation of how you are not whatever the limiting belief is. So, and that takes repetition and time, in my experience. But in doing that, it dispowers any of the thoughts or behaviors that are also linked to it. So that core belief has a lot of power. And if that is rewired, then it kind of severs the ties to other things as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always try to remind myself and anyone else that it took lots of repetition for that to become so ingrained in us, the old patterns, the false conscious, that so it's obviously going to take lots of repetition to let that one go and fill it and replace it with something new.
Yeah, and it really is important to have the awareness resonate on a level that reaches like the emotional being, because if you're just saying words and not really sinking into that feeling of believing them to be true, it's not as effective.
Right. Absolutely. I would love for you to give some examples, because I can imagine there's somebody out there listening right now who's had similar experiences in their life as you have, because you've gone through some really like intense like life situations. And for anyone out there who has had, so I'm thinking of like the natural disasters. You said you're a multiple hurricane and tornado survivor. So I'm thinking of anyone else out there who might have some trauma lingering or some its and symptoms that have developed as a residual, from these experiences. Would you be able to talk about how you incorporated healing around these experiences? Because you've really come far in that. I mean, you said you're at a place now where you can actually find peace and relaxation in a storm that would have otherwise set you off in the past.
Yes. So I had very deep associations with weather, even as a young child, before experiencing hurricanes or tornadoes. And I think it came from like a sense of just powerlessness and like wanting to control things that cannot be controlled. And that kind of like as a child, I relied on adults around me to kind of be the source of safety. And I found when I was 16 years old when I experienced 4 hurricanes within like a month period. So it was like very chaotic, and it brought my attention to how I was still looking externally for this source of safety and security, and I was looking I was looking at people to be that source for me, but it was not within their ability to serve as that. So needless to say, I developed a lot of limbic issues. But what I found to mitigate all of that is the awareness that I myself am a source of my own safety and security. And I don't really need to be looking externally to kind of try to grasp that or create that. I can construct it from within. And just going backwards a little bit, that awareness didn't come easily. There was a journey where, in order to kind of come to terms with certain weather events, I physically moved away from the environment to kind of just as a means of not experiencing it. But I moved back to Florida and found that was not the way that I could really deal with those experiences. I kind of had to move through them and re-experience them. And it was actually a hurricane in North Florida that occurred like 1 month before I found the DNRS DVDs. So it was like this message that like, okay, you need to deal with this. And that was what really gave me the courage and the awareness that I needed to move forward with DNRS as an option for healing, because I saw that I was still carrying around things from the past that really were defining my present. So yeah, and like just through using like the tools of DNRS for incrementally training, I started to break it down. I broke down the trigger, like the weather events, to very simple things. So I focused on wind and recreating associations with wind that were pleasant. And that led to creating positive associations with rain, where I did visualizations where I was like reading a book, and looking at like the pane of a glass window as like droplets were moving down, and just feeling so at peace, and listening to like a wind chime moving around in the wind. And it just like it made space for new experiences to emerge and develop, and for like the old experiences to be left in the past, and I didn't have to keep pulling them into the future, just by things that like were similar but so not similar.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you incrementally trained, you would actually create visualizations of having an experience with parts of the weather, like you said. So you would actually, is that what you're saying? Or would you like be outside in wind and then go inside and do a visualization? Or would you actually like in your visualization have an experience with like the beautiful sounds of wind chimes?
Well, it was kind of a combination of both. It started with visualizations because I still had connections to like flashbacks when I was out in the elements. So I found visualizations to be like that like that area that would still allow me to tap into those pathways without activating too much of the old programming. So I relied heavily on visualizations, and then kind of moved into doing fun activities when the weather was not so great, so that my attention was occupied in whatever activity or place I was in, and less on the weather, but there was an awareness that the weather was kind of there to kind of tune in and out with, and build new associations with. So parts were getting activated, but I was able to shift my focus.
Good. Okay. I love that. That's awesome. I know I live in Northern California, and there's a lot of people who could benefit from hearing stuff like this because of all the fires.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be, but like you said, I really like that you highlighted that moving away from everything wasn't necessarily the answer, that you had to kind of deal with it.
Yeah, I had to be in it.
Yeah, because we can't hide from everything forever.
No. And that reinforces whatever those messages are, or that fear or uncertainty or that lack of security, that just, it gives power to that.
Absolutely. It's kind of like, and of course, we both understand there's obviously a value of incrementally training, so you don't put yourself right back in this position that just causes havoc internally. But it's kind of like, we've learned that eventually we have to start saying yes to life, because it's in those moments we're like experiencing and living life that we're also rewiring and growing. Kind of like, I'm not going to get really good at relationships if I don't have any. So you were building this relationship with these things outside of yourself.
Yes. And it required kind of treading on territory that I had previous associations with, just to open up to that potential of what it could be instead.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I do something I've done something really similar too, with like, with certain types of weather, primarily temperature related. Mm-hmm. So, And it's just it's amazing. It's amazing to just see the transformation that can happen when you're consistent and just keep showing up over and over and creating these different experiences and perceptions and connections.
Yes.
What are some of your personal favorite or biggest successes or wins? Like in this experience since you started brain rewiring, what are just some of your personal favorites? Like what do you consider to be the biggest wins and successes for yourself?
Okay. So one of my biggest wins at the time was I was experiencing its and feelings associated with like agoraphobia and just not wanting to be around a lot of people or in new places. And I was able to travel back to New York and attend New York Comic Con where there's just like so many people. And I had a lot of fun, and it was an opportunity to kind of shift my surroundings and also return back to places that I had a lot of joy and positive experiences with, and just be like this new version of myself where I wasn't allowing fear to kind of dictate what choices or what places I went to, and I was just like returning to more like simplistic times of just not having to think so much and just do and be. That's probably one of the first like major shifts. It was my first trip after going to the in-person seminar, and with the in-person seminar I actually went I traveled by car, and this trip was by airplane, and just it was an amazing experience because I wasn't doing it with any supportive medication or anything like that. It was just like, let me test these new neural pathways and see where they take me.
That is awesome. Congratulations. So you're into comics?
Well, like pop culture. When I lived in New York, I would get like a pro pass because I'm an artist. So they prioritized artists and creatives to kind of experience it, because it's a convention where like people dress in like different costumes, like superheroes and stuff like that, and you get to meet different artists that are actually like comic and graphic novel artists. And they also have like screenings and premieres for different TV shows and stuff like that. So it's like all of these avenues for artistic exploration in like a pop culture sense, and not so much like museums or commercial art. And it's like a really exciting and fun environment to be in, because there's just like so much to see.
That's awesome. I would have never known that. Thank you for sharing. And that does sound fun.
They do it like in San Diego too. That's the other major one for the West Coast.
Yeah, I've totally heard about it. And I'm not somebody who's really into comics. That's why I never really would have even thought twice about it. But I can see if you're just into like art and playful stuff, how that would be really fun.
Yeah. It's really fun. It's like, I don't know, it's like Disneyland for artists.
Awesome. Wow, that's cool. Maybe someday. So, okay, what would be your advice to anyone listening? Because I know, and I'm sure that I have listeners at all levels, people who are still kind of searching for what's next, and they don't even know what brain retraining is that we're talking about right now, but I'll do a solo at the beginning and kind of brief them. But like, there could be people who have no idea. They've just been still doing the traditional medicine route, or there's people who are in brain rewiring, or maybe they're using other self-healing tools and they're feeling stuck. I mean, just for anyone in general who's listening, what would be your advice?
Okay, so my journey to find brain retraining wasn't like an easy step. So I had to go through a lot of failed experiments and just avenues where I just felt like this was an option that I had I had nothing to lose by trying it. That was the mindset I had in approaching it. So if you are experiencing similar, where you've tried a lot of different things and you're not having the results that you are hoping to have, then I would say just give this a try and just open your mind to the possibility of what could happen. I had a lot of skepticism going into it because of the history I had in trying things ahead of time. And that soon changed when I started to really experience these shifts in places that have never shifted. And especially the further I got along in rewiring, conditions that I was not even recognizing to be limbic were suddenly resolving in ways that I never could have dreamed of. And there's a lot connected with the body, where like the brain is the messenger to the nervous systems. And if that messenger is misguiding or misdirecting, the nervous systems kind of throw everything off. If the sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive, that creates a lot of issues with like the vital organs. And if the parasympathetic nervous system is not effectively rebalancing, then you can have issues with sleep or digestive stuff, rest digest processes primarily, but it affects a whole lot. So it seems a little simplistic when you think that just modifying thoughts and behaviors can possibly reach into all these crevices of the body and have any effect on conditions that don't seem to be connected. But I know through experience, and I know through seeing and reading so many testimonials of other people, that there's so much possibility just in turning more inward and really exploring like the unconscious programming that is also helping to fuel certain connections that are fueling certain symptoms. So it's all interrelated. And I would really, really encourage just exploring that with the mindset that there's nothing to lose in trying.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand how there can be skepticism, because if you've been the route where so many of us have been, where you try this and then that and then this and then that, and you get your hopes up over and over and over again, only to get let down. And then you find this one last thing, you're skeptical. You don't want to get the hopes up again. But as you've mentioned, and so many other people I've talked to, most of the time they're just like, well, I have nothing to lose. And even with some skepticism, they still see the progress.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's recognizing that the brain is behind it, but it's not saying that the symptoms or conditions are all in your head. They are most definitely real. They are just misguided messages that are creating a level of awareness that is indicating that there's an issue, but the issue could simply be this patterning in thoughts or behaviors or core beliefs.
Yeah. Something that always stuck with me that I heard a long time ago was that pain was an indicator. Pain was just an indicator that we were out of alignment with our soul, and an effort to bring us back home.
Yes.
So, it makes sense. And if there's thought patterns and limiting beliefs and false consciousness that's not actually the truth of who we are, then it would make sense that it would or could potentially cause disruption that would get our attention, that would help us to do the work to get back to who we are.
Yes, that sounds That's so eloquently put. Yes.
Okay. Well, Alina, I know we've gotten to talk a little bit about creativity and your creative sides and the different avenues that you've been exploring for creative outlets. And I know recently you had this awesome opportunity to build, or not build, but to paint and create this beautiful mural. And then you've recently just hosted your very first vision board class, guiding other brain retrainers into designing a vision for themselves. And gosh, there's the gnomes and a couple other little things you've been really working on and putting together. So I'd love for you to just take some time to share with the world and anyone listening what you're up to these days and what you have in the works and what we can be expecting from brain gardening.
I have a lot of projects that I'm currently working on. I'm doing a desktop Zen garden kit. There's 3 different sizes, and I'm making all of the items that go inside the kits by hand. And it's been a really fun project for me to work on, just for the brain benefits that are being had for me. But it's the purpose of it is to create activities that are engaging more of the senses, so tactility and sight, and just something that like really supports and nourishes the brain, but can also be used to replace a habit or something that you're not wanting to continue. So it's like a fun, almost like an activity kit that a child would have, but it's meant for adults, and just to help support those feelings and experiences that a child would have. And I'm making like these little clay gnomes. So I find it funny that I'm using like clay, because I always had like this image through brain retraining, like that I'm like resculpting my brain. So it's funny how that has played out in the materials that I chose. And I'm also doing, well, brain gardening has a lot of inspiration that comes from nature. Specifically, like as it relates to like the growth mindset and just resilience being such a prominent image experienced through nature. So I've been doing a lot of like illustrative work, and I'm going to be doing a neuroplasticity based coloring book that has a lot of these quotes and positive, like affirmative sayings that are going to be available for people to kind of fill in and color and just be creative. And that was inspired actually by the mural that you mentioned, because I found myself experiencing the benefits of just focusing in on certain words and coloring them in. In my case, I was painting them on a wall, and the saying was grow through what you go through, and it was like playing in my mind like a mantra as I was painting in an environment that had many past triggers in it, and it was just kind of drowning out that voice in my head that would say otherwise. So I thought that would be a useful tool for other retrainers to have, like a coloring book that's meant just as like a tool to see these affirmations, but to also experience them in a way that it really resonates in the mind. And what else am I working on? Oh, and the sound meditation. So I'm going through this program. I graduate, I think, in June, and I'll have my certificate. And as part of the program, we have to do like a little dissertation, as if it's almost like grad school, but without the degree. So I'll be doing sound meditations, and I'm looking forward to that because it's really fun. I've been like collecting all sorts of instruments and different things, and I'm waiting for like a really good quality microphone so that I can capture the different nuances of the sounds. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's awesome. You got lots of little things going on.
Yeah, it's been really, really fun for me.
I love it. I honestly feel, what's your opinion on this? Do you just feel, I mean, like we already talked about, everyone has like this inner creative. Do you feel like incorporating elements of creativity really help to elevate the brain retraining experience?
I definitely do, because I think there are things that you can experience through the creative arts or through creative activities that is not it's not experienced by like the intellectual brain. Like you're getting deep into like the emotional, more primal side of the brain.
Yes. Yeah. I know that when I really push I don't want to say the word push, because I'm trying to learn to not incorporate pushing in my life. But when I really encourage myself to be more creative in my approach to my visualizations and my approach to other tools that I'm using to supplement, I have a way more powerful, beautiful experience when I do.
Yes. Creativity is neuroplasticity in action.
Yes. I like that. Creativity is neuroplasticity. I'm going to write that down. Okay. Side note. Well, going back on the things you're doing, what are you doing with the gnomes, by the way?
So the gnomes are going to go in the kits. The kits are kind of based off the concept of like Zen gardens. They usually have like a Buddha figurine. So I'm doing various gnomes that are in yoga poses. One is like in namaste pose. One is in a meditative pose. And they're just like these fun little guys. I don't know. They make me smile.
They're great. I love them. And they're so little, but they're so good.
And my plan is to also make them available like as figurines for people's like gardens and stuff. So Zen gardens aren't your thing and you prefer actual gardening, then you can have a little gnome that can kind of give you brain retraining vibes.
Yeah, and watch over your plants.
Yeah.
I love this. And so the Zen garden kit can kind of be like something that we would use to redirect, right? Like say if like our brain is popping or we're going into like a ruminating thought, we could actually just go sit down at our desk and work on our kit.
Exactly, yeah. And like there are other kits available that have like, they claim like the same concepts, but I've really been attentive to the materials that I'm using and the senses that I'm engaging. So I'm using like kinetic sand and things that are like typically used for children, especially children with like special needs to help promote brain development. But I'm making a kit that's marketed for adults so they can have those same benefits.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm excited about those. And I do want to say I'm super stoked on your coloring book. My favorite coloring book is actually, it's basically quotes or like words, like positive, uplifting words and quotes. And then it's like mostly flowers and really pretty stuff. And I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, I found myself doodling a lot of flowers through like the brain retraining journey. Actually, the first time I watched the DVDs, the DNRS DVDs, I just found myself doodling in my notes, and that was a behavior that was like, I don't know, that was the first sign that like creativity was kind of coming back.
Yes, and you wrote a whole blog on doodling too. So speaking of blogs, where can people find you and how can they connect with you so that they can stay up to date on all these beautiful tools that you will be eventually releasing?
So I am one of the writers on the Rewiring Your Wellness blog, and I have a blog on rewiring for creativity that specifically speaks to the different tools and tactics that I used to welcome more creativity in my life. And that's a monthly blog. So once a month I'm posting on there, and I'm also posting pretty regularly on my Instagram at Brain Gardening, on my Facebook page at Brain Gardening, and then I also have a blog on braingardening.com.
And do you blog on there more regularly than on Rewiring Your Wellness?
No. So I was really excited by the opportunity to blog for Rewiring Your Wellness, and I've been enjoying it so much that I've started to kind of step outside of those posts and also do posts on braingardening.com for various things. So not necessarily creativity. That's primarily for the Rewiring Your Wellness series, but I'm kind of speaking to different lessons and shifts, and I'll be talking about more about movement and music and things to like a deeper extent on brain gardening.
Awesome. I love it. I'm super excited to just continue to be connected with you and see what comes next and what transpires and unfolds and the next beautiful creative venture that you're on. And yeah, I will make sure that I put all the links in the show notes so that people can connect with you. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for being here and sharing so much just inspiration and creative juices. And I hope that this conversation will get people's creative juices flowing or create some inspiration for them to tap into that creative that's waiting to be unleashed within.
I hope so too. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I forgot to mention, but I'll also be offering coaching services, specifically if you have creative blocks or feel that you don't have access to creativity. I'll be doing one-on-one support for that.
Oh, okay. Coaching specifically for helping break through creative blocks. And now, would your ideal client be somebody who is brain rewiring, or can it be anyone who just who is an artist of some sort who wants to break through these blocks?
I think it could be anyone, because I think what mostly drives people to approach brain retraining, I feel, is like chronic illness. But I feel like limbic system issues can manifest on a more emotional level or mental level before they reveal themselves physically. So I think that these are tools that really anybody can use.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, and that's very well said. And how would you prefer people to reach out to you if they were specifically interested in that?
So I don't have a page yet up on my website about it. It's a brand new offering. So I can be reached at info@braingardening.com if anyone's interested.
Okay, I will add that link too. So yeah, thank you once again. I really appreciate our whole chat today. That was really awesome. And also thank you on a personal note for your wonderful guidance and your blogs, your beautiful writing, and all the wonderful suggestions you're always offering, because it's, like I said, I did the journey dance and I intend to do it every Tuesday that I can. And you also introduced me to mind travel, which has been a beautiful tool that I've been incorporating mostly since the day you introduced it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It brings me a lot of peace. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, friends, that is a wrap. Thank you for being on this journey with me. If you have a story that you would like to share to help inspire healing for anyone who's listening, please email me. I would absolutely love to connect with you. And don't forget about your one-page writing challenge this week. And until next time, make this week great.